Which brings me to our panel, Liberal Senator James Paterson and 3AW's Justin Smith. James, Justin, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
G'day, Chris.
Clive Palmer, can I start with him? I wouldn't trust him personally as far as I could throw him. Justin, how about you?
Before we start on this, Chris, can I send a little cheerio out to all the people that were thinking of voting for Clive and then at the very last minute decided not to? Because I say congratulations to you because the green pools and the lack of power and the overgrown grass, that's what we would have been in for if Clive had have held any kind of power in Canberra. So congratulations to those people. Everything Clive seems to touch seems to actually get a little film of algae over the top, doesn't he? You know, that's Clive's. Clive is just great at that little bit of slime that sits on top of the pool. He's done it with everything he seems to touch. How the hell that guy managed to make his fortune in the first place is beyond me. Surely he can't have that good a run of luck. There must be some talent there, but I don't think we've seen it. None of us have seen it anyway.
I love the algae symbol. It's beautiful. James, he's playing with the lives of people who don't deserve any of this.
That's right. And Chris, believe it or not, I've actually visited the COOLUM resort about 3 years ago. I was in the area and I decided to pop in for curiosity because I'd read about it. And it is like visiting a post-apocalyptic wasteland. There are dinosaurs, there is long grass, there is rancid pools, and there is apartment after apartment after apartment, which is collecting dust and cobwebs. About the only thing it would be useful for now is filming a zombie movie. Maybe we can have some tax incentives to get one filmed in Queensland and help the locals out, because on a serious point, it's not just devastated the investors who own those timeshares, who I feel very sorry for, but also the local town, the local community who lived around what was once a thriving resort and provided employment for hairdressers and cafe owners and all the rest. So it is a tragic tale of what he's done to that town. Apparently
the dinosaurs are crumbling as well. I could just imagine what you saw 3 years ago and how bad it's become now. Apparently the golf course is the only thing that's operable. I don't know who's maintaining the golf course. Justin, you can see the same pattern in the way he's behaving with the Palmer COOLUM resort to the pattern that we've seen in Queensland Nickel and the court case that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just such the selfishness about the guy. And what sort of annoys me is during that campaign, you know, he had the thumbs up and come and vote for me and it's the all Aussie bloke and I'm out for Australians. And, you know, that endless garbage and those yellow billboards that we'd seen over and over again. And let's not all of us, Chris and Senator, let us not forget the text messages that we received every bloody night for a couple of weeks as well. And we get that from him, but we just don't tend to get what we need from a guy like that. And particularly people that invest in him and particularly people that work for him just don't get what they should be getting. They get all the garbage.
Spot on. Look after those damn people. They're just disgusting. James, I want to return to what occurred in the Sydney CBD this afternoon, this stabbing. What were your first impressions when you heard about this mid-afternoon?
Incredibly shocking and disturbing, and immediately my mind went to other similar events around the world. It's too early to draw any firm conclusions about the motives of the alleged perpetrator, and we have to let the police conduct their investigation. But this is the kind of incident that we hope would never come to an Australian city, and it seems that it has today. But I guess one thing that you can take out of it that is heartening is the incredible bravery shown by bystanders. Yeah. We all like to think that if we were in a situation like that we would act with courage and we'd be decisive, but it's another thing to actually do it. And they did it, and they distinguished themselves today and might quite possibly save lives in the process, and that's an extraordinary thing.
Justin Smith, I noticed on the footage, when this bloke's jumping on top of the Uber vehicle, there's this guy, he almost looked like a lion tamer with the chair out and the legs pointing at him, almost saying, come at me, but you're going to cop a chair. I think I'd back the knife before the chair. He showed a lot of guts.
Oh, a hell of a lot of guts. And there's more to it than that too, Chris, as you're right. He was there when he was jumping on the car. But when he got off the car and went down the street, that guy with the chair didn't move. He was with him the entire time. I think there must be, in New South Wales, there must be some bravery awards that are coming their way, because it was incredible. But one of my first thoughts were, thank heavens for our gun laws. Because if you look at what has been playing out in the United States over and over again, people just like that person today, and the Senator is right, we've got to let the courts allow this to play out and the police to do their work. But these scenes today, those people don't have knives that they grabbed out of kitchens. They've got AR-15s, they've got shotguns and handguns, and they cause a hell of a lot of damage. And you wouldn't be just talking about one dead and 2 people badly injured. You would be talking about dozens of people that have been killed. So thank heavens for any gun nuts that keep pushing for a change in our gun laws. Just have a look at that today.
Yeah, thankfully it's too hard to get a gun for most people in this country, and that's the fact, and it's a fantastic fact. But Justin, it's not hard to work out that radical Islam has played a part here, or do you think we're jumping the gun a little bit on that?
I think we're jumping the gun, and just at the moment I know that there are witnesses saying that he screamed out an Allah Akbar, but that has actually happened before when there was no real link to it. I mean, this person apparently has escaped from a psychiatric institution. Look, and there'll be plenty of time to go through that when we find out a little bit more about it. But I mean, you're talking about a person who went on a rampage. I mean, their credibility is pretty low. I wouldn't be believing one thing that they said. But if it is radical Islam, it's a continuing problem we need to deal with.
Yeah, of course they could still find out connections that he may have had online because, as we understand it, he hasn't been on their radar. I want to go to Queensland, James, if I may, and the State Crime and Corruption Commission confirmed today it's got no jurisdiction over breaches of the Ministerial Code of Conduct by embattled Deputy Premier Jackie Trad. If the Crime and Corruption Commission can't look at this, James, who can?
Well, it's pretty easy. It's the Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk. The buck stops with her. It's her ministerial code and it's her job to enforce it. But they're joined at the hip, James. They're joined at the hip. Well, I feel very sorry for the Premier that she's got a political problem to deal with, but when she was opposition leader, she was calling for ministers in similar circumstances to resign every day of the week. And this is an extraordinary affair of property dealings, failures to disclose, failures to recuse from cabinet discussions, contacting the Crime and Corruption Commission boss inappropriately. I mean, it's just, there are so many elements to this, so many red flags, so many good reasons to sack Jackie Trad, or at least to ask her to step down pending the investigation.
But why hasn't she stepped down herself? Like, seriously, if she cared for the reputation of the Queensland Parliament, she should have stepped down long before this.
I completely agree with you, and that's a question only she can answer. And given that she's failed to do that, it's a question that Anastasia Palaszczuk ultimately has to answer and must take decisive action. I understand that Jackie Trad's a very powerful figure in the Labor Party in Queensland, and that might make things a little bit messy for Anastasia, but she's the Premier. She's got to address this. All right, Justin, I saw the Courier Mail's survey on this today. Should Jackie Trad step down? 93% of those who were involved in that survey said yes. Now, that is an overwhelming message for either or both Jackie Trad and Anastasia Palaszczuk. You better do something really quick because you're about to lose next year's election. Oh, look, and the embarrassment is not going to go away. I mean, this isn't going to, you know, well, as you say, you look at that survey in the paper and you look at us talking about it here, but, you know, imagine being in Queensland. This is going to cover everything that the Premier is going to talk about over the next couple of months. I mean, her agenda is dead until she gets this fixed. Yep. The embarrassing part is the Premier is screaming about how well, not screaming, but every time the question was asked, she said, well, it's for the Crime Commission to sort out and it's really up to them. I mean, some of these politicians really love independent bodies that they can point to and say, oh, don't worry, this independent body will fix it. But when you find out that that independent body has got bugger all to do with it and it's all in your camp, it's pretty embarrassing. I can't believe not one of her advisors informed her of that fact beforehand. Yeah. I would have thought if something was going to happen, it would have happened today, given those circumstances and the response from the Crime Commission. Just extraordinary. I want to get on to our final topic. The Trade Minister has released a list of 172 foods and 236 spirits the European Union wants protected in return for a free trade agreement with Australia. Now, we're desperate to have this free trade agreement with Europe. We've been on about it for many, many years. Their bid to stop Australian cheesemakers using the name Feta has advanced, but it looks like Australia is pushing back on Prosecco. James, we can't have Feta now. Is there a solution to this? I think there is, Chris, and I should say at the outset, this is not something that the Australian government particularly relishes having to do, but in exchange for a free trade agreement with what is effectively the world's second largest economy with 500 million consumers, it's an extraordinary opportunity, and for the Europeans, every free trade agreement they've done have included
hang on,
these
so
sorts
you're
of provisions.
suggesting we're going to cop it here?
Well, I'm not suggesting we're going to cop it exactly as it has been outlined in the media today, and we're seeking input from Australian producers to make sure we understand exactly what their concerns are. But one hypothetical solution would be that we might not be able to sell Greek Feta in Australia, but we might be able to sell Australian Feta in Australia. So it's not necessarily that the term Feta will be off the table for Australian producers, but maybe we just can't purport to be selling a particular European style of Feta, and we have to say that we're selling our own Australian style of Feta.
So I can't sprinkle authentic Greek Feta over my lamb on a Sunday?
You just have to buy it from Greece.
Come on, Senator. Can we not get stuck into these prissy Europeans?
Yes.
That are telling us that we can't call our food Feta. I mean, isn't the world a little bit smarter than that? You know, surely we've gone a little bit beyond. But I think as far as Australian consumers are concerned, we know what's good for us, and we know that Australian products. I mean, look at the wine industry. The wine industry has done very well, even though it had to dump the champagnes many years ago.
Yeah, we lost that battle, didn't we?
We did lose that battle, and I'm calling on the Senator tonight to make sure that we don't lose the Prosecco battle, or the Feta battle, or the prosciutto battle, and we've really got to take it up to these Europeans. No, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where it plays out, but I think Australian people will still know that we make damn good product here, and if it isn't called Feta, they'll find it and they'll eat it.
James, can I just ask about prosciutto? See, this is like Feta. I'm sorry, I know I'm on about this, but there's nothing like wonderful Italian prosciutto. So are you saying that now we've got to eat only Australian-made prosciutto?
Well, it's subject to negotiation with the European Union, and as much as we might be tempted to tell them where to go on this, I think the potential benefits of a free trade agreement probably outweigh a temptation to tell them what we think of them. And I think we should be diplomatic about it and have a real go at this. But the Australian government is never going to agree to something that has a serious detrimental effect on Australian primary producers. Absolutely not. I represent dairy farmers here in Victoria, and their interests are paramount in my mind and in the government's mind when we're coming to this. But if there is a reasonable accommodation that we can make, as the wine industry did with champagne and other varieties many years ago, then I think we should take it, because it does allow us to reap huge potential economic opportunities.
You're dealing with the Europeans, Senator. You're not going to get. You're not going to get anything reasonable out of that. Have you been looking at the way things have been playing out over there?
Exactly. The way they handled Brexit, they're not moving in any direction, and they'll do the same on this topic as well.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, I think I might be. Finally, Liberal Senator James Paterson, just in terms of some of the issues that have come before the Trade Minister, has he really been genuinely upset, do you know, about this debate that was initiated by Andrew Hastie on our relationship with China? Or is he just saying that so that next time he goes to Beijing, he can deal with them and show that he's on their side?
Well, I haven't spoken to him about this, but I take him at his word. In my case, I'm very sympathetic to the arguments made by Andrew Hastie. I think we do have serious issues to confront in our relationship with China, and it's important that we're able to be completely open and frank and honest about that. But Andrew, like me, as a backbencher, does have a degree more freedom to engage in that public discussion than a minister does, Trade Minister or any other portfolio. Okay. So we'll take up our opportunity to do that.
All right. James Paterson, Justin Smith, thank you so much for your time this evening.